Hello there, this is for the evaluation question for A2 Media. In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? One of the first media products we had to create was a feature film, a trailer for a feature film. And for this, our group this trailer was called Unsubscribed. I'm just going to go through it in a linear fashion through the trailer as it is. Initially, we see the logo of YouTube Red, which has been done by ourselves, as we did not want to. We want to show the modern nature and individual nature of YouTube, how they can adapt to specific movies. And yes, the colors red, white and black are very conventional of the horror genre. The next company involved is called Stargate Studios. Again, we use their own font, and this was a made-up company, unlike YouTube Red. And in this we have plenty of distortion, elements of something being wrong, and it's relatable to existing logos as well, as we did our research. Finally, we have included Film 4 as our final production or almost distribution company, seeing as Film 4 are often involved in low budget independent films that are British. All of these are conventional, as you need several production companies or companies involved in making an independent movie, as they need the any financial support they can get. When we start the trailer, we see a close-up of Sean, one of the characters in the film, and you can see by the portrayal of him wearing the glasses that he's the nerd of the group, and you can see there's a distinct red background to show danger, foreshadowing his death, which is typical and conventional for a slasher trailer or movie. And furthermore, the handheld camera gives authenticity as modern vloggers often use this sort of handheld format, and so the audience our age group is between 15 to 19, so they can relate to this style of camera work. This links to the uses and gratifications theory, as this theory suggests that media audiences play an active role in interpreting and integrating media into their own lives, which links to the fact that Sean is a YouTuber, and the audience take them into their lives as part of finding out their identity and seeing what they like, what is around them. They're using media to find out essentially about themselves and what is around them. Then we move on to Morgan, who we initially see pressing the camera, which indicates it is a YouTube video, and she's wearing red, which again indicates danger and death, and it shows that she has the potential to be the promiscuous girl at this stage, and her bedroom is typical bedroom of maybe a teenager or a person of her age group, as you can see things lying around, books, a bed, clothes, a picture, things like that, things that you expect in a typical teenager's bedroom. In comparison to the Sean and Morgan, Harry and Yarmo's entrance is much more dynamic, and it emphasizes their youth, which is conventional, yet in some elements unconventional, as they're doing it different to how the other two did. These are a pair of YouTubers instead of the singular the other two are. Later on in the trailer we see the young people, the characters in the trailer, climbing over almost a fence, and this highlights the rebellious nature of young people, which is in line with the typical characteristics placed among young people. From then on, there is a lot of jump cuts used in the trailer, which is typical of a video of vlogging sort of genre, and which shows that this is again a YouTube video. The transition is very, very important in changing the tone of the trailer, as soon as Sean's hand hits the camera, you can see that the tone shifts and it goes darker, which again is convention. The use of Sean's hand hitting the camera to him opening the car door is continuity editing, and then we see matched action when he opens the door and gets out of the car. The text that appears afterwards, "They didn't know," is a sort of a TV screen-like feature, which highlights how technology has gone wrong in this film. Later on we see a shot of the four characters walking to the destination, and at one stage you see Yarmul alone and almost on top of a bin, which indicates that she is going to be the first one to die. This is unconventional, as she can be seen as a typical final girl, but through this representation we're showing that she is indeed not the final girl, and that there is a twist element to this trailer. Again, we have text afterwards saying "what" with the same TV screen-like feature, reiterating the point of technology going wrong in this trailer, in this movie. It's followed by a shot of a gate, which indicates how these characters are in a barrier and they're trapped inside the world of the killer as soon as they enter the school. The blog that we see afterwards refers to the selfie generation, and how it's again a YouTube video, and to reinstate the youthful nature of the characters involved. As the blog finishes, there is a swift transition to where we change location, and after that a text appears saying "what" in the same format as the previous text. It says "was" in the same format as the previous text. Then we are introduced to the montage sequence with a extreme close-up shot of Sean, which is similar to the shots used in the Blair Witch Project. As soon as the montage sequence begins, there is a shift in tone. The colours in general are darker. There is a sense of purple, element of being bruising maybe in terms of the killer or one of the characters. Again, we see a lot of handheld camera to show the realism and the element of this being of the selfie and vlog generation. Afterwards, we also see a point of view shot on Sean, which links to the film Peeping Tom. This links to Barth's theory, yes, and it links to his Enigma code, or hermeneutic, which refers to mystery within a text, as in you have clues included within the trailer, but no clear answers are given to the audience, and it tends to keep the audience on the edge and make them want to see even more, to find out more about the narrative. After the next text, which says coming, which is in the same format as all the previous text, we see a CCTV camera like shot, which highlights the surveillance generation we're currently in, where we're constantly being watched, whether it's on our phones when we put a location on, or whether it's TV programs such as Big Brother, where we enjoy watching other people's lives and what they do. The red hoodie suggests reference to the Don't Look Now movie, and has obvious connotations of Little Red Riding Hood. The stars used are in typical colour, but in some way unconventional due to the slight faded effect they contain, which highlights the unique and unconventional nature of the narrative. The scene where Harry and Yarmo are covered in blood and almost in an argument is, and it seems obscure, and it's as if they're trapped, as if you're watching into their lives, and it again highlights the surveillance generation we're in, but also highlights out there in the world of the killer and how they're trapped. The mentioning of an accident by Harry indicates that there is even more than what meets the eye to the narrative, and it keeps the audience on edge and makes them want even more. Then we see an over-the-shoulder shot of what the audience assume is the killer. As of yet, they do not know the identity of the killer, but the killer is wearing red, which indicates it could be maybe one of the characters, which again highlights the twist element of the film. We have another shot of a gate or fence, which again highlights the notion of the characters being trapped in the world of the killer. Then we see a shot of a Yarmo, extreme close-up, which is conventional, as we're displaying the fear in her eyes and how she's feeling due to a predicament. And then after that we see Sean holding the weapon. Why you won't know as the audience. It's again to keep the audience on the edge. But that is the first indication of the weapon, which again is unconventional, as it's right at the end of the trailer. Then we have the font. It's in red, which is again conventional of the slasher genre, conveying danger, pain, blood, suffering, evil. All things are linked to the killer. And the font is almost electronic, computer-like, which hints at the narrative and how it's all linked with YouTube, and how it's again about how technology has gone wrong. It reiterates the trendy nature and the modern element of this film. Then the sound stops as we see Harry crawling up to a sort of not a medium shot, but a close-up of him, and some more highlighting his hands and how he has blood on his hands to indicate that he's been suffering so far. Then we have a close-up of Yarmo, clearly in plain as she has blood all over her face, and she's crying out for help, which again reiterates how she is the first to be killed. Then we have another close-up on Harry, and he is similar to Yarmo, very much in pain. As the camera slowly moves up, the tension almost builds thanks to the sound, and then there's a jump scare of Yarmo falling down, which is conventional, as you see this very much in slasher trailers. Then we have the end card, which has references to social media. In this case, we have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and a website, which is very, very important nowadays, as due to the fragmented audiences and the varied amount of ways they can access information. Therefore, you need to adopt a multi-platform approach in order to reach as many of our target audience as we can. And the end card contains everything you'd normally expect. Things as the principal, cast and crew, and production company name, distribution company name, all the companies involved in general, and all the producers, directors, etc. The unconventional yet very intriguing element of this trailer is as the end card goes away, we hear a simple audio in the background of Sean crying for help, which again increases fear, tension, and almost keeps the audience on the edge and wanting to know what's going to happen next. This comes with the after the coming soon text pops up, which uses the same font as unsubscribed, just to keep the theme recurring. Now, in terms of the sound, it's jaunty and happy at the beginning during the introduction stage, but you hear little clips or squeaks of when they transition to the other clips, which has reference to technology and the element of it going wrong. As soon as Sean puts his hand on the camera, again you hear that little screeching noise of which is relevant to technology. But as soon as he puts his hand, the mood shifts, and there's more eerie, dark music involved now in the trailer. And for the they didn't know section of the text, there is also the reiteration of the element of the TV screen going off, technology gone wrong, which is a recurring element throughout the trailer. Even when Morgan is vlogging their experiences, the tone of the soundtrack in the background does not change, just to show as soon as they've entered the area there is no escape, and that indeed they are in danger now. The music intensifies as soon as Morgan's finished their vlog to indicate the montage sequence of the trailer, in which it starts as soon as we get the extreme close-up of Sean. There is an element of electronic echo almost used on the when dialogue of the characters, which fits in with the whole narrative of the film, which is surrounding YouTubers and how decisions they make goes wrong, which is related to technology again. The sound almost intensifies in speed, pace, and it goes up in pitch as well, and it all almost draws to a close when the title of the film is revealed. Then to create tension again, there is no sound. There's merely the sound of Harry walking up to the camera or crawling up to the camera, and Yarmo's dialogue. After Yarmo's dialogue, you can hear Harry crawling up pretty down to the camera, and there's almost a buzzing noise or screeching noise in the background. It's increasing in volume, and then just as it's almost reaching a climax, we see the jump scare of Yamo dropping down onto the ground. Finally, the use of Sean's voice as a background to the bit of the end card and the coming soon text, very effective, as it's again, the voice has been manipulated to sound electronic, which links to the whole narrative of the movie, but again, but it also keeps the audience on the edge, and keeps them almost thinking about what's happening to these characters in the film. In terms of a theorist, we can talk about Todorov and his 5 stages of narrative, where he mentions that the first stage is a state of equilibrium, which I think this trailer does adhere to, as you can see them in a normal setup of a video where they making a video for their channel, but of course this is tailored just for the film narrative. It's not just a random video, it's specific for the narrative, but it's a form of equilibrium. Then we reach the stage of disruption of the equilibrium, and we see that as soon as they enter the school, that the tone changes, that there's a montage sequence, and obviously they have all recognized that there's disruption that's taking place. The characters have recognized that, but as far as you can see in the trailer, there is no attempt at repairing the damage, or there is no sense of a new equilibrium. The trailer merely highlights the suffering of the characters and the pain they're going through. So it does highlight 3 of Todorov's 5 stages of narrative, but it doesn't show the other remaining 2. Then we move on to Laura Mulvey's male gaze theory, where she believes women are portrayed in a form that are in line with what men want, instead of what's maybe prescribed as equal. So they're in line with the view of heterosexual males and how they want women to be. So in that form, it's probably according to her in a sexual or promiscuous way that almost fills the erotic desires of men, and this is commonly seen across media. And in terms of our trailer, Morgan is the closest we see to the promiscuous character, but even in that sense you don't see much of her in the trailer. I mean, there are some shots which can be referred to as in line with the male gaze, seen as a positioning in some shots, but mainly she is not really in line with the male gaze, and she hasn't been intended to be in line with it. But definitely Yamo is not in line. She's meant to be seen as the final girl in some sense, but obviously she isn't. And yes, Morgan is, in fact, she's not in line with the male gaze. She is in fact the killer. Next we move on to Barbara Creed's theory as of women being monstrous and being there to castrate men, and in that sense we have taken that literally, and we've literally got Morgan as our killer, holding in charge of the weapon, which is an axe, which is seen as almost a phallic symbol, which takes away the almost identity of men, and in that form she is, and she does adhere to this theory of Barbara Creed, as she's literally seen as she is the killer. So she's almost seen literally as the monster. So she's definitely in line. She's relatable to this particular theory. Earlier, I referred to how you can mention Morgan as the Little Red Riding Hood of the sense that she's going out by herself, fighting against potential bad guys. But we have completely flipped that on its head by making her the killer. So she's, in fact, what you'd say is a Little Red Riding Hood gone wrong, or losing her innocence almost. As in this case, Morgan is in fact the killer, and she's not in any case the innocent one as such. In terms of the characters of profiles, we have Yamo with the brown hair, with the youthful nature and dynamic nature as she's introduced in the video initially, and she almost fits perfectly with the characteristic of a final girl as such. But through the indication of her almost being on top of the bin in one of the earlier shots, you can certainly see that this is not intended. This trailer is not conventional, and Harry is actually the final boy as such, and he again has brown hair. He's dynamic, young and smart in the whole of the trailer, and he's the only one you don't really see almost attacked along with Morgan. But yeah, throughout the trailer you see Sean being chased, you see Yamo and Harry in pain, but you do never see Morgan in any such pain, which gives a big hint to the audience of of her role in the narrative. And in terms of Sean's character, he's ideal for the nerd role, as he's seen wearing a shirt, glasses, and he's a man who makes videos regarding technology. If he fits the bill. And Morgan's character is a more complex role, which creates a different opinion, as you could see her as a final girl almost due to her hair, but then you see the clothing she wears, and then that is often associated with the promiscuous girl, but again she's not the promiscuous girl either, which is again not in line with the dominant ideology. And the red actually represents her dangerous nature instead of any promiscuous element she has. And yeah, in terms of that, our trailer does not have a promiscuous girl as such, so we do not follow all the character profiles. Also, in regards to a theorist, a film critic and an analyst called Pam Cook, according to her, a Hollywood or a feature film follows a linear narrative of cause and effect with an overall trajectory of enigma resolution. And yes, the film is linear, but the trailer is in fact the opposite, as it's a non-linear text. It's jumping constantly back and forth, and in that front, our trailer is the same. And now we can move on to the poster, and this poster is very much conventional, as you do have the element of red, black and white, which is what my target audience wanted. Throughout the research part, I've realized that this is the color scheme I should go for. In this case, the killer is holding a weapon, which is, you can see often in a lot of existing slasher posters, But the killer is not wearing a mask as such, and the killer is almost hidden in the shadows, which highlights how you never really see the killer throughout the trailer. And you also have in this particular poster the logos at the bottom and the principal cast and crew, as well as all the companies involved, which is typical of any poster. The poster almost highlights the fear of unknown, as in there is an emphasis on the weapon, and it's clear to see what the weapon is, but you don't know who is the killer, which brings a sense of uncertainty, and it will make the audience feel uncomfortable, as they don't know what they're dealing with. They don't even know what the identity of the killer is. There are no real clues given throughout the trailer. And at the right hand side of the trailer, there is it's covered in red, but there are elements of white in it. It's to highlight how the innocence is taken away by the evil and the powerful nature of the killer, and represents the binary opposites of good and evil. And from the killer, all you can really make out is his or her eye, and a hint of red in it, which red has connotations of danger and death and blood, which is all relevant to this lesser genre. And the poster does have the title of the movie, which is use the same typography as in the trailer, so that the audience can relate. And it also has a tagline: "Every subscribe counts," and the subscribe is in the format of a subscribe button in YouTube, which reiterates the technology element and how it's linked to YouTube, but the button is distorted to show how the world of these YouTubers are about to be distorted once they enter the school. There is no reference to a website or any social media platforms, because I feel as if the mentioning of YouTube Red is enough to highlight how this is available on YouTube. Moving on to the poster now, I decided to use a pre-existing magazine, Little White Lies, and obviously Little White Lies are already a very unique brand, and they make unique content, and I thought for this unique film that we're making, it's ideal to have this sort of well-known, unique magazine that aims at a niche audience to be involved in a movie. And the image, not unlike most Little White Lies magazines, it highlights on the weapon instead of the killer, just to emphasize its importance in the narrative, and how again the identity of the killer is hidden and is not shown to the audience in any such way. There is also an emphasis on the weapon and how it's shining almost, just to show how that is almost a deciding factor throughout the movie, and almost as if the weapon is triggering all the negativity that happens. And the colours again are essentially black and red. Not much of white in this one, but yeah, it's a whole lot of negativity, and you can easily relate this to any slasher magazines you see around. And yeah, the title of the movie is included, but very small and distinct, and is included in a different font color, just to highlight how this how this magazine is not part of the marketing campaign, how it's separate, and therefore the magazine has a capacity to do different things, and therefore the font is the same, but yet the colours are different, just to highlight this notion. The barcode is placed in a conventional area, but there are no other features, because in Little White Lies magazines you don't often see anything other than the picture, the central image, and the logo and the barcode, and this fits in with that. Compared to the more conventional looking poster, this is more unconventional, but there is always an element in all three media products of the slightly unconventional nature of this trailer. I mean, of this film in general. And that is the end. Thank you for listening. This has been the evaluation question for my A2 Media coursework.